Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Wendell, and this is Lead Well MD, a podcast that explores how leaders can transform healthcare through effective clinician leadership. My guest today is Dr. Elizabeth Copeland, who is the Chief Medical Officer of the Palo Alto Foundation Medical Group in Palo Alto, California. And I've been looking forward to this conversation because I know this guest fairly well, and I've had the privilege of working with her. And I can tell you that she is the real deal. I'm excited to hear her thoughts on the transition that she's made from practicing physician to C-suite level role and all the peaks and valleys of things that have happened along the way. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here with me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for the invitation. I'm just delighted to spend some time with you, and I love learning from other leaders. So anything I can do to help the journey of anyone else who's navigating their way through this, I'm all here for it.
That's so great. Thank you, Elizabeth. I love it. All right. So before we jump into the whole meat of things, I actually wanted to start on something a little bit personal, because I think that a lot of people who are drawn to leadership maybe don't necessarily see themselves as leaders first. Maybe other people see them as leaders before they do. So when did you realize that you were being seen as a leader? You know, maybe just not an excellent pediatrician, but actually as a leader of other physicians. When did that start?
I think my story is not that uncommon in physician leadership journeys. I think that there's a thread that runs through many of us, which is you're in practice, you're starting out, you're learning that fire hose of just clinical care and how to do it well. And then you start just seeing systems problems that are more evident maybe where you're working. So, for example, like you're definitely learning the one-on-one and taking care of patients. I'm learning how to do medicine well. I'm learning what it means to be not in training anymore. But then there's something else that starts to happen, I think, and this is the case for me and with others as well, which is like, well, why do we do things like this? Or, why does the clinic run like this? Or this is so inefficient. Like, why are we doing it this way? And I think that's the bug that gets into people's worlds, that they start wanting to think about more systems issues. And I think that's really what happened with me. I started just a little bit in leadership, kind of unintentionally, as many of us do, even before I worked in my group now, Palo Alto Foundation Medical Group, but I was working at Kaiser. And we just had very typical clinic issues, same things that lots of clinics struggle with. And at the time, I just remember being, well, couldn't we try this? Or couldn't we have a follow-up system for this clinical issue? Things that I just saw were being overworked or not efficient or what have you. And so I think I was just kind of nosy into things, to be really honest. And I had a wonderful boss and mentor at that time who had hired me. And he said, well, why don't you, my friend, try and fix it if it bothers you so much, which is how people start, right? And so I think what's important is just like, you don't have to approach leadership as like, I'm going to apply for this big whole role, or I'm going to, have this roadmap in front of me. I think it's really like, what are you passionate about? What are you drawn to? What resonates with you? So I do think somebody else in that situation sort of identified me as a leader, and it was a little bit more organic for me. And I think for a lot of people, I think a lot of physician leaders enter through like a quality thing, like you've gotten some passion around something that you're interested in. But I think it doesn't have to be this big, I'm going to be this big role thing. It's just how you start,
Well, it's so funny because one of my other questions on that was, did you do it willingly or did it kind of sneak up on you?
Yeah. I think for me, anyway, it's very fun to think about how do you do things just in a better way. And better could be quality, it could be efficiency, it could be culture, it could be a million different things, but kind of always thinking about, and this has stayed with me, like, why do we do things the way we do them? And a lot of times there's really good reasons and it's been very intentional. And a lot of times it's just because it's the way we do things. It's just organic and historic and we grew up doing it. And just kind of thinking about that all the time, I just think it keeps us moving forward. And that can be on a really beginner small scale or a really big
Sure.
system scale. So,
Right. Well, it's interesting because actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you as well was about this whole journey. I think that sometimes people who are even considering going into leadership, like you say, like they think it's this big official capacity and this particular pathway that they have to be on, especially to get up to the CMO level. So what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about that journey that physicians or clinicians might have that might even keep them from wanting to even embark?
yeah. Well, I think it's just overwhelming. Like,
Yeah.
I think coming out from training, you've
Mm.
just been so focused on just being a good doctor.
Yeah.
And I feel very strongly you should just focus on being a good doctor, especially at the beginning. There's so much to learn.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
value that you bring as a physician leader, it's rooted in being a good doctor. Like you
Yeah.
have to understand what's important to patients, what's important to people doing clinical work. And without doing that for some time, I think
Right.
it would be hard. And just by nature of that work that we do, that authenticity piece, it's grounded in that work.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think for me, one of the things that I would say is you don't have to have this big roadmap where you're like doing something new every whatever 6 months and getting a new role and doing a new thing and like stressing yourself out. I think it's more following your passions and following what really resonates with you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is life is long, like careers are long. And this I think is true for everybody, but you have seasons in life. I think,
Yeah.
I remember being at the earlier part of my career. I was doing like little leadership here and there, but I mean, mostly I was trying to survive and see patients and work 3 days a week and have 3 little kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really okay to lean into the leader part for the capacity that is interesting and good
Yeah.
and not feel like you have to be tied to somebody else's, journey or
Right.
timeline.
Yeah.
I think it's really okay to step back for a second and not rush your way through it.
Right.
Like I have found too, this is a little existential, but like I think the
Yeah.
roles
Yeah.
come to you
Yeah.
at the time that
Yeah.
you're ready for them in many circumstances. And that doesn't mean that sometimes you don't misstep and, apply for something that maybe wasn't for you. But I do think like that journey can be a little organic. I think
Right.
you don't have to force it. It's really interesting. Like I go sometimes to recruitment events for residents at various places, and it's totally fascinating to me. Like you'll talk to people who are in training and they'll be like, so how would I join the group and be a leader? And
Right.
I mean, that's not like wrong inherently. I get it. People want to come in and they see that as their path, but also I really advise people by saying like, yes, 100%. If you come join PathMig, there's going to be a million opportunities for you to do leadership and join, settle,
Yes.
take care of patients,
Yeah.
understand what it means to be out as a practicing physician.
Yeah.
So
Understand cultural context.
yeah,
Know
it's
people.
so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just take your time.
I think that's so great. And the other part is this idea of we can't underestimate the shift that has to happen. It's not just a title change. You don't just get a title. It's an identity shift, don't you think, from practicing physician into moving into leadership?
Yeah.
How was that for you? Where did you land on that?
I think it's always a journey. And I think one of the things, and it's not the case everywhere, at least here in our group, everybody who's a leader, with very few exceptions, sees patients still. So we live in both places. All the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
I don't see patients as much as I used to, but I still go to clinic mostly every week, and and again, it's very grounding. So I'll walk into the clinic and I'll walk into the exam room and be like, why do we have 4 trash cans now? And what is happening? And like, they love it when I come, trust me.
Yeah.
But it's also, you have to do that to stay in that clinical mindset. I think it's super.
Sure.
And at the same time, I think one of the most important things, especially for physicians in leadership, is learning how to elevate out of your own experience. So, the clinical expertise that we all have,
Yes.
it's just natural. You have a view of the world. Like you sort of see things through the lens of your clinical specialty because that's so much of our identity.
Yeah.
So I'm a pediatrician, so
Yeah.
I have that view of the world. But in many ways, as I move through leadership, it's been interesting because at the beginning, I was doing a lot of pediatric leadership, which totally makes sense. And then I was the pediatric chair over our group for many years. And, the jump that I then have made in a couple of roles since is being over many specialties that are not mine clinically. And I think there's a piece of that that's very intimidating. For me, I will speak for myself. For me, I found it intimidating to be like, well, how in the world would I lead a group of physicians who's doing something totally like foreign to me? I know just probably enough to be a little dangerous, right? Like yes, I've been in ORs, yes, of course, through school and training, but it isn't my world. And I think one of the things that I've really learned is it can actually be an advantage to not know.
Yes.
And I would never have thought that. I just thought I would not be ever able to really understand and really be respected and really be seen as a leader. But I think in many ways, and pediatrics is almost perfect in some ways because as a pediatrician, I have no horse in any game, in any race, I guess is not the phrase. In a lot of these conversations, and I can approach the conversations much more like a beginner's mindset. Like, okay, I'm hearing about this issue.
Right.
Know your work. Tell me about what's happening. Like, what's important? What are we missing? How can I help? And sometimes that actually, I wouldn't have thought that would be an advantage, but I find it is in many scenarios.
It's so interesting, Elizabeth. I love that you said that because I think that's absolutely true. If you think about it, I do so much work around helping people shift that hat from clinical expert, subject matter expert. I'm the smartest person in the room in this field because I have to be, and that's okay, valid and appropriate. But when you switch that hat to being more facilitative, to eliciting information and answers from other people, right? It gets in the way, that tendency to want to aid. So what you're saying is perfect for that. And that's a hard shift for a lot of people. Very hard.
It is. And it's funny, like I have a VP team who all reports to me. So I have 5 VPs and 2 of them are like, they're all honestly amazing. I could not without them. And, but 2 of them, I have 2 great guys who are VP over surgical specialty and VP over medical specialty. And they are intense clinicians. They know and do clinical work like I am astounded by literally every day. And they make fun of me because we're in lots of meetings together and we're approaching issues. And one of the things that I will say is, gosh, I know I don't know much about this. I'm a pediatrician. Like, I don't really know. And now they tease me and they're like, oh, you're pulling out I'm just a pediatrician line. And they're like, they're way more than you have that thing going, which is funny. So they're on to me. But I do think it's very effective to just like bring down the issues sometimes.
Well, I think it brings in a level of humility that I think is very welcomed by other people. It's very accepting on your side, but it also means that you go in there not saying that you know everything there is to know all the time. And I think that's a pressure that a lot of leaders, especially newer leaders, feel like they have to walk in the door and add the value and have all the answers. And I think as you get through leadership a little bit more, you realize that that's counterproductive.
It's impossible. And I think for physicians, we are so connected to tactical knowledge. That is so important to our clinical work. You have to know. You have to have experience. You have to be an expert. You have to, that's part of it. And when you're transitioning into more of a leader position, I think you have to get very comfortable. For example, I do a lot of stuff with budgets and finance and hiring, recruiting, all these things that I didn't learn about those things in med school. And I think you have to get very comfortable. And I think people really welcome when you just say, I don't understand anything you just said, but you just like back up with this spreadsheet or take me through it, or can we book a little time separately so you can like walk me through this? People, I mean, you're never going to be working in a situation where people are expecting you to be the finance expert. Like, it's not generally speaking why you're there. You might develop those skills and maybe that's another chapter for you later, but at that time, you are there because you are an amazing clinician, most likely, and you have shown you're able to lead through initiatives and things like that. And that then the next step is it requires you to learn about some of these other things, but there are always other people who are there to help you. You can always ask questions. You can always lean on people who literally are hired to do those things. So I would just reassure people, like, it is okay to just be like, I really have no clue. It's not my expertise, but help me learn, teach me about it.
Yes. I love that so much, because I think so many people I've worked with have trouble feeling like if they say they don't know, it's going to break their credibility.
Yes.
But it does the opposite. When you say, I need your help, let's figure this out, it builds your credibility as a leader.
Totally. And you can ask those people, if you were in my shoes, what would be the most important things to learn about from your discipline? What would be the things that I would be able to bring better conversations forward? And people always want to help you. I mean, if you just ask them, people love to talk about what they do. So I think, I mean, I've found people being so generous with their time and their knowledge. And I think I'm very fortunate to work where I do, because I think that's really the culture. It's a mindset shift. I feel sometimes like I know less content the longer I do leadership in many ways. It's more universal kind of lessons.
Great.
How to move through situations, how to lead people, how to bring people together, how to let people solve their own problems with help, that kind of stuff. It's not about the fact of the thing that you know.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you, what would be a surprising thing about the course of your week that maybe a colleague who hasn't been in leadership wouldn't see coming? It kind of sounds like that would probably be one of them. The fact that it's okay to say, I don't know, and it's helpful.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you can think of that might be something they wouldn't have expected?
I think that shift in mindset from the factual knowledge, but also the thing that I see people continually needing, I don't want to say needing work on, that's not quite right, but where we can really advance and think clearly is listening skills, communication skills, translating complicated ideas into digestible ways for people to think about it. I used to think if somebody's in a role and it's because, you come from medical training, it's very hierarchical. It's like very clear exactly who is above who, all the levels through residency and training and everything. If your boss tells you to do something or whatever, you're going to do it because that's how it works. I think the shift into things don't get done because you have authority them in a boss role. Things get done because of the relationships that you intentionally build. Yeah. And so the work in some ways a lot less linear than it is sort of just foundationally relationship based.
Yeah.
And so I think it might surprise people coming into leadership as a young leader that things are less obviously related to your role.
Right.
And of course, your role is important, and that opens up doors and brings you into conversations that you might not be in. And what's also important is really thinking about what would need to be true in order for this project, concern, kerfuffle, whatever is happening to be resolved. Like what would need to be true? Who would need to talk? Who would need to see things in a little bit of a different way? And those things aren't solved by hierarchy, right? Those things are just solved by talking in relationships and bringing people together. So I think people might be surprised by that. It's a lot more of that than it is like, structured.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that is when people first get into leadership, they kind of go, wait a second. There's a lot of interpersonal, human, messy dynamics that I got to work through here.
Totally.
And that's what steers the ship. I mean, Well, another thing I want to ask you about is as CMO, you have two very particular accountabilities, which is, I mean, you've got the accountability to the organization, right? And the strategic priorities and all the budgets and all the things on that side. But as a clinician, you're still the physician voice in the room too. So how do you balance that? And have you ever experienced difficulty with that, the tension between those two?
So I think by nature of my role, my job is always to bring the clinical voice into any conversation that I'm in. Like It's funny. You can be in conversations about all kinds of things and
Yeah.
I have, and you'll see, I mean, I have lots of opinions about lots of things that are non-clinical. And so I can certainly share those thoughts and that's okay. But really,
Yeah.
in the end, where is I don't want to say my value, but my most important piece
Right.
is to be the one who has the experience in the exam room, who has the experience of what people doing clinical work need.
Mhm.
What is my experience with how patients react to things? Like that is what is so important. So we can never lose that, I think. That said,
Mhm.
what I would say is that when you're leading groups of physicians, there are sort of, and we have a physician group that's its own company. And then we are affiliated with Sutter Health, which is a big healthcare company. And it's just the way it works in California, that they have some separation. And for us, I think we always have to think about the strategic goals of Sutter, because that's very important. And the group is very aligned to those goals, 99.9% of the time.
Right.
We're not 100% aligned all the time in exactly how to operationalize and get to that goal, right? So, and that's kind of where my conversation often settles. And when I'm working with physicians, moving cheese, change management, thinking about those bigger picture goals.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I notice is that in their leadership journey, physicians often are at that point where they feel like their main job is physician advocacy, advocating for their people. And
Right.
that is important. Like there's real content and really important things in there. And then I see as people develop, they come to this point where they learn the balance.
Right.
The physician advocacy part never goes away. The patient advocacy part never goes away.
Right.
It has to be foundational.
Yes.
Because I also see my job as I am the person taking care of the people who take care of the people, right? So that is so important. You can never lose that. And can you have that and advance strategic,
Right.
hard things?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that? And I think that's a piece for physician leaders, that balance. I see it develop over time.
Yeah.
You can talk about it and you can coach others through it, but it's almost like you have to do it for a while before you finally are like, okay, so here I am. I've got these two things. And they do compete.
Yep.
And it's much easier when everything aligned perfectly. But there's always a little bit of tension. It's good. I mean, I think the healthy tension that moves us forward in better ways, those are good conversations that I don't mind, actually. I think we get to better solutions. I like how the Sutter system pushes us sometimes to get a little uncomfortable and look at things in a different way. And I hope, I think that, when we bring perspectives that are maybe a little physician advocate forward or, certainly quality clinical concerns for sure, it helps them be better. So I think that's the partnership piece, that it's a little bit of a journey, but I think it's super important.
So it sounds like that partnership is really facilitated by these ongoing relationships and conversations that have to happen.
100%.
Right. And I think that the initial mindset shift of the us and them type mentality, it still exists out there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think once people cross that chasm a little bit and are able to see the importance of the partnership and that the goals are more in alignment than they think,
Yes.
that they start to be able to work together on those things. But yeah,
I think about it a lot. Like, I think if you just step back a little, it is very rare for people who work in healthcare not to ultimately have very similar goals.
yeah,
People want to take care of people. People want to do the right things. People want to bring excellent care to more people in our community. And when I keep that in the back of my mind and think about just how we get from here to whatever the topic is, it helps me a lot to not have like that us and them emotional piece.
Yeah.
I think it takes time also just to not get worked up about stuff as much, right? It's just normal. And I still do, of course. I mean, everybody does to some degree, but I think just that little bit of, I don't say distance isn't the right word, but just that like realization, we are always going to have problems. Like we would not have our jobs if there were not problems to work through every single day.
right.
We solve one problem, there will be another. Like kind of leaning into that fact that this is just how it is. And I think that's helped me a lot, just settle.
Recognizing that and saying, okay, one challenge on to the next, but it's how it's navigated is what's important, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And keeping that really healthy mindset, that what you're saying. I think I've seen a shift over the years with that us and them thing. I mean, there's still, it depends on where you are in the country and different situations, but there's still people that are well entrenched in that mindset. But I do see a shift, I think, towards more of a partnership understanding.
I
And
think it's hard. I mean, it's always been hard to be in healthcare, but it's increasingly hard, the
yeah,
financial pressures. And I mean, I
yes,
think to some degree it's helpful. Like we can do an us and them thing, but really it's us and them kind of
yes,
working against the
yeah,
realities of this financial issue coming in healthcare, right? And I
wow,
mean, there isn't really a lot of, in my mind, there isn't that much time to really like um get into that us and them mindset because you're both really ultimately aligned to the same goal. So you need to
yeah,
work through it and
yeah,
figure
yeah.
out how you're going to work together.
Okay, yeah, that makes complete sense. I wanted to ask a little bit about the fact, so you've been in it now for a while, right? So have you been seeing the dynamics that happen, the political kind of navigating that you have to do and the way that decisions are made and power moves through organizations like you're in it? So is there something that you wish somebody would have told you before you came
Yeah.
into roles like this that might have helped you from the get-go?
I think that what I would say is that, and again, I think it's kind of how we're brought up
Yeah.
in medicine. I think that the way things get done
Mhm.
is really not as related to hard work that you put. I mean, it sounds wrong. Hard work is important, of course, but it's really important to understand the political underlying dynamics of what's going on, and it's worth investing time in understanding that.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean you have to be out investigating who's talking to who and gossipy, whatever, but it's important to understand where the winds are blowing, and it's important to understand what is worth getting on a hill over
Right.
and what is not. And it takes time. There's no way you can just know this by somebody telling you. But there comes times when you can see the writing on the wall of, okay, this is going to happen, whatever this is, initiative, whatever, something you don't think is great. This is on the tracks. It's going to happen.
Right.
And you can be sad and you can have meetings and you can have a moment and you can do all of that. But before you do that, having a really step back, thoughtful assessment
Mhm.
of how likely is it and how important is it
Right.
that I try and derail whatever this is.
Right.
I think you need to really, what I've learned and what I would probably tell a young leader,
Yeah.
how important is it?
Right.
And save up your, I'm lying on these train tracks for the things that are really important. For me, those are patient care issues, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Like 100% full stop.
Right.
And sometimes there's nebulous areas in there, but I mean,
Sure.
generally speaking.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the culture and wellness of our people in the
Okay.
healthcare system, for me, those are kind of my things. Like I will get on a hill about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
as other things, I think reasonable people can disagree about how to do things.
Mhm.
And I think really deciding how you're going to also, you only have so much like fight in you, like in the end. How are you going to kind of distribute it out?
Right.
How do you assess where it's going to really matter and you're going to make an impact versus where are you just going to basically whine and you're going to get a reputation as a whiner? I'm just like throwing that out there. It's really hard at the beginning to figure that out. I think it's really hard for people to navigate. It only comes with time.
Yeah.
Because in order to get things done, you also need to be seen as a collaborator.
Mhm.
And you need to be seen as someone who's reasonable and willing to talk about things. And the reality is there's very few situations in which things are 100% right or 100% wrong. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of gray area in here that I think you have to be willing, and importantly, even with people who are not that reasonable sometimes or don't appear to be that reasonable initially,
Right.
you need to be willing to like, again, pause,
Yeah.
give some time in between like what has happened that has made you upset, whatever, and your reaction to it. And think about, where does this situation fall on this scale of things? Where do I really need to dig in? What's really important? And then
Right.
how will I interface with people?
Right.
Those are the kinds of things that I think don't obviously come across that you're going to need to think about.
Right.
It's a lot of self-management.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely sounds like that. This is so helpful and so useful, I think, because I don't think people even considering leadership hear this type of thing, this kind of coaching or mentoring. And that's what this
Yeah.
is, because you're absolutely saying the things that can sink the ship. We don't think about up front. We think about the hard work. We think about the deliverables. We think about the strategic goals. But we don't think about the nuances of how we get there.
Yeah.
And
Let me be clear, I have done all of those things. I mean, I have
yeah.
been tiring, I have gone in, it was the wrong thing. Like, that's how I now don't. I try not to do that anymore. I mean, so it's like you can just, you have to like go through it, right? And you have to figure it out. But yeah, I think it's as important,
Right.
or by far more important than any content,
Right. And I love what you said about it being so gray. I think people get into trouble when they think very black and white. It's this or that. It's good or bad. It's, and being able to expand the mind around the fact that it's not black and white.
Yeah.
And there's nuance. So I love that. Oh my gosh. So let me ask you this. All right. So you've been through your hurdles.
Yeah.
And when you first started in leadership at PathMag, I mean, I know you've done so much good work, and I've been privy to some of that, and a lot of work on collaboration, team dynamics, just so many things. But when you first started and you saw those things that needed change, how did you start having those conversations without triggering people, without getting people defensive? What was your way?
I mean, I think for me, the first thing is and this is, I think, something that I've learned over the years is when you get a leadership role, you're so excited. Like, you want to get in there and you're like, I see this problem and I want to get in there and fix it. I think that's probably so common. And I know that's where I started. And I think what's really important is just, you don't even know anything yet, really. You think you might know some things, but you probably don't really know anything in terms of, if you're seeing a situation or a workflow or whatever that you think needs a change, it is being done that way for a reason. It might not be a good reason, for sure, but there is a reason why it is done how it is. And you need to spend some time just slowing down and getting to know the people who are engaged in this workflow. Who is going to be, let's say you did change it, who is a stakeholder? Who is going to be affected? Who designed it in the first place? Why was it designed? And sometimes it is so old and nobody even remembers that change is welcome. And that is fairly straightforward and everybody's aligned. But more often than not, you really don't know until you pause and you ask. I think, it's funny, there's this interview question, right? Like, I feel like I've been interviewed more than anybody in my medical group ever, potentially. It might not be right, but I feel like I've been through, and also have interviewed a lot of people. So there's this question, right? And I mean, you know this question well, which is, what would you do the first 90 days of your new role? And I think in many situations, there aren't right answers to interview questions, but I think there's a right answer to this question, which is, you don't do too many things. You get to know the team. You pause, you learn, you start to understand the people, and you start to understand the culture, right? So for me, like, that is and I think a lot of people, when they answer that question, don't say that, even though, like, a tip, everybody, that is the right answer to that question, just so you know. Because you get yourself into trouble otherwise, because there's all these landmines you don't know about. So I think for me, that's probably one of the most important things to think through.
Yes. Oh, I totally agree. I've worked with so many people who just go in guns blazing. They're like, yes, we're going to go do this. We're going to make all these amazing changes. And they don't listen to people. They don't stop. And because it's that pressure that they feel that they put on themselves to add value. Like, right away, I was hired for a reason. I've got all these great ideas. I'm gonna just go make some great change. And it tanks, It
totally tanks. Yeah. I think, like, and it's not about the idea that you have. Like, the idea is usually a great idea. And it's probably something you can do at some point.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I would say is when you do go in to start building consensus and make a change, pick something that is easy, right? Like pick something that's not that hard or not that controversial. It's really easy to go for the big thing that everybody's been struggling with, everybody's been complaining about whatever for 5 years. If you want to do that, just pause for a second. It doesn't mean you won't get there, but pick something that you're starting to build relationships with. You're showing the team that your leadership is and ideally pick something that has something that's very tactical you can see changing in data or like something people can see. Like
Right.
something not that hard and something everybody can get behind and something you can see.
Visible. Yep.
That's the thing. If you do that, people are always a little suspicious of a new leader. Well, and suspicious is just like, we don't know you. Who are you? What do you do? What are you about? And you gotta build up the trust a little bit so that when you're trying to lead people through hard actual things, that they're like, oh, well, I see how
Yeah.
this was done. So maybe it's okay. Maybe it's gonna be okay. You know what I mean? So like, again, just I feel like I'm saying a lot to slow down. But just think, pause.
Exactly. No, but that's so true. I love that because you're setting yourself up for success that way by picking something a little bit smaller. I love it. Smaller, more visible, enough to get to know people, earn their respect in that way and their trust. And actually one of the next things I wanted to ask you about is kind of connected to this because the whole concept of psychological safety, right? You want to create a space where people will actually tell you the truth, right? Because if you're in a change process and you've identified something, and I think clinicians, physicians in particular, either they just won't tell you, they'll tell everybody else about, the issue or go sideways on that. They'll comply, but they certainly won't commit. I mean, there's a lot of things that happens if they don't feel comfortable telling the truth or saying it directly. So what tips would you give a new leader of how to develop that environment where people can do that? Yeah.
I would say two things come to mind. The first one that I think is the very most important is you have to tell the truth.
Yes. Yeah.
It seems very basic, but I think especially when you're coming into leadership, especially in a situation you might be like a little nervous about, or a situation in which it's not like you're going into any situation intending to lie about things. It's not that. It's more like you're in a conversation and there's content that you're not that good at yet. And maybe you don't have your kind of wing person who's there to help you. It's really tempting to feel like, okay, for me to appear to be the leaderiest leader, I should know the answer to this. And sometimes you can get yourself into a situation where you maybe overspeak a little bit, or you say something that you think is true, but you're not 100% sure. Like, I think the very first thing is you have to be honest. Because people will, I mean, doctors and APCs, clinical people, they will sniff that out. And probably everybody does. I just know more about them. I mean, they will sniff that out in 5 seconds and they'll be like, oh, that person said something about my clinical thing that they thought they knew all about and they don't know anything about it. So the first thing I would say is you have to tell the truth. If you don't know something, or if it's this happens to me. I mean, sometimes people use acronyms and I'm like, I literally do not know what that is. You just have to be honest and I think authentic. Because if you're authentic and people believe that you're authentic, they mirror that. I find they mirror that back to you. Because I want to bring them into my circle of trust that it is okay that I don't know everything. And I'm asking them their advice and I'm asking them what they think and I'm asking them their true truth about whatever the topic is. Because I don't know. And how would I know? Because I haven't asked them. And I can bring whatever I think to it, but that's not the first step. The first step is like being honest. So I would say that is the very first thing. Be authentic, be honest. Then I think the second part, and this is kind of more typical stuff that people talk about with psychological safety, but you really have to be intentional about making sure people have time to talk in meetings. So you have to invite discord. Like you have to invite other people's opinions. And I think this is more commonly taught in leadership stuff these days than it used to be. But honestly, it is so easy for a meeting or a conversation to be dominated by 2 out of 7 or 8 people and it runs away. And the people who maybe need a little bit more time to think or just see it differently,
Yeah.
They are just like, okay, well, I guess that's how that's going.
Yeah.
And so I think,
Yeah.
again, slowing down the conversation and being like, I am hearing what you're saying. Let me pause us for a second.
Right.
And I have a little bit of a mixed feeling about calling on people because I think sometimes people I don't really like to get called on. It makes me very uncomfortable. However, I know sometimes people find that's useful and be like, hey, whatever, Joe, we haven't heard your thoughts yet. What do you think? I personally don't want to put Joe on the spot, but I want to give Joe
Right.
space and opportunity. So, I think people who I've seen do this well might say, who has a different opinion? I'm totally hearing what you're saying. What if we thought about this also?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so I think the way to get people to tell the truth is to make them feel safe.
Yeah.
That when they say things,
Yep.
they aren't going to be immediately like
Uh-huh.
they don't feel dumb. I think everybody, this is true, but I think physicians maybe even more. Nobody wants to look dumb.
Right.
Because nobody ever wants to look dumb. But I think also we're really used to being experts in our content area. So it's really hard to be in meetings where you're like, well, I'm going to say something, but I'm not really sure it's right. Now, for sure, some people do not have this issue. They are fine to speak. But there's people who just, I think, are a little more hesitant, and I understand that. So I would just say, this is a little bit long, but, I think being honest yourself and being authentic yourself.
Yes.
And telling the truth. And like, if you're asking them to do something hard, be like, this is really hard. And here's why we need to do it. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then really giving people space. And
Yeah.
those are the things that I think for me are the most important.
I totally agree. I think one of the things I've seen people do where they really get in their own ways, they say, yes, I want to hear everybody's opinion. And then somebody will pipe up with it and they'll go that, and they'll just shoot it down. Right. Argue it down. And I'm like, even, what I always say is, even if it's the dumbest thing you ever heard in your life, you thank them for the effort of speaking up and sharing it, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think people don't realize how their reaction to somebody's comment will make it very unlikely that anybody else will speak up.
For sure. And also, like, in that situation, why might that idea not have resonated with you? Well, maybe they were really nervous, or maybe they were not in a spot that they could articulate themselves super well, or maybe they needed more time to think, So sometimes in that situation, I'll also just follow up with people and be like, hey, that was a really interesting thing you brought up. I want to make sure I'm getting what you're saying, right? Because I think people need different things to feel safe.
Yes.
Everybody is not the same.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a big thing. I mean, we could have a whole other discussion about the equity differences. And now we have to look at how when we feel psychologically safe doesn't mean everybody else does. Right? There's so many factors that play a role in that.
Totally.
But being cognizant of that, I think, is just the first step. It's that intentionality that matters so much. Well, let me ask you something. I think this whole conversation is a really important aspect of helping people to collaborate better, is making space, is giving them, setting the example really of how we connect and communicate with each other. What do you think kills collaboration on the other side, on the flip side, between team members or physicians? What gets in the way?
I think maybe I'll start by being more specific to physicians. I think devaluing clinical expertise will 100% kill a conversation, because there is just, like, honestly, there's like a no tolerance for that. Say you've got a situation in which physician needs something, a piece of equipment or whatever it is to do their work. Of course, there's a conversation to be had about that. Things are expensive and, capital requests or whatever, right? But if that conversation evolves to a place where somebody who is not clinical is telling the clinical person that they don't need it just for clinical reasons, that's like, we're done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is very specific to doctors, but I'm sure that there are parallels in other industries. So that is for sure. Like, for us, it's our core identity, right? Yeah. It's who we literally are. It's how we identify ourselves. Yeah. Is having that level of knowledge and expertise.
Right.
So I think that is a big one. More generally, I think just being in any leadership role, being the person with all the ideas,
right,
does not allow anybody else to have any ideas. And this I have had to learn, because my problem is not having enough ideas. It's never been my problem. I have many, many, many ideas. And what does not work well is for me to be like, you guys, have this great idea. Why don't you go do it?
Right.
That's not a helpful conversation. So I think that is something that I have to always be a little bit mindful for, because I'm like super enthusiastic about things. I have tons of ideas and I'm like, oh, but you know what is much better is if you can let people come up with the ideas that you want them to have in many ways that are strategically aligned, that are where you're trying to get them to go, because it's so much more fun to do the things that are hard for your own idea than it is to do things that are hard for somebody else's idea. So I think for me, just watching it as a leader, that you are, and this is when you're bringing people together to get hard things done, I think really letting them own and run things themselves.
Huge.
Very, very hard for physician leaders, I think. We are very used to trying to be in the weeds all the time. So letting people have their ideas, letting people run things the way they want to, it's so much, let me just say this, it works so much better.
Yes.
And it's hard. I think it's still hard for me sometimes, because I'm like, well, what's happening here and what's this? And, and I mean, it is our job. It's always our job to know what's going on and to be following what's happening and be there as a resource. But yeah, trying to like micromanage people is a conversation killer. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of it, but you should know where to dip in and then get right back out again.
Right.
So,
I think the ownership piece is so huge. And when in the leaders coach work that we do at TAFMEG, so much of it is about trying to help people move out of the parachuting in. Here's the solution. Let's go, right? And allowing people to give time and space and thought for them to come up with it. And it might be the same solution. It might be one that's even better.
Yeah.
Right. And then giving them space with the how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And you have to also be not the person who's, we tried that in like 2018. And it didn't work. So,
therefore,
it's like, right. So therefore, that's a good idea. Like, you just have to like step back and let them do it themselves. They have to learn. And maybe they're going to come up with a totally different way, and this time it's going to go. Who knows, right? And you have to let them be on the struggle bus a little bit. Because that's how you figure out how to do stuff.
Right. And that's hard.
It's hard. I know. And I'm like a little mama bear over them sometimes. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to pause. I'm going to stop saying things. It's like parenting. You got it. I'm sure you got it.
Yep. Off you go. All right. Okay. Well, I want to shift gears just a tiny bit. And I want to ask you a little bit, because you are a woman in a senior executive role. And in an organization. And I think PathMag is way ahead of the curve in so many ways with regard to women in leadership.
Totally.
There's still gaps, right? And that's true across the country. I mean, very true across the country. Do you think about that? Does that factor into your work, being a woman? And is it part of how you see your role, or do you have to kind of set it aside and just do the work?
I think both at times, I think, are true. Sometimes you just do need to set it aside and get your work done.
Right.
I think about it, I will be honest, I think about it less now than I used to.
Okay, good.
And I think part of the reason that that's the case is when I was pretty junior in leadership, and I would look at my leadership here, sometimes at Sutter. This is not universally true. There were always strong women leaders, but they were a little few and far between, I would say. And the way that leadership was modeled for me, like, it's really important what you're modeling, I think, at the senior leader level.
Yes.
It's important what you're doing, but it's also important how you're showing up. And I think when I was a young department chair running clinic or whatever, and I looked kind of up, I was like, I don't know how I would ever be there. It wasn't like I was going to be the CMO someday, far from it. But I just didn't really see an obvious person, or which I was like, that really resonates. Like, I could do that. I could do that. Right now, I'm taking care of 3 little kids and overwhelmed with my department chair role, but maybe someday I could do that. I feel really good. I hope that others now can see that better. Because things have changed in my tenure through leadership. There are many more amazing, strong women physician and APC leaders in the group, and at Sutter too. So I think my generation, maybe there's been like and I know we have to keep working on it. Nothing's perfect, of course. But I think for me, what's really important is figuring out how to model how you can do it, how you can be a normal person
Yeah.
with a normal life, with all the normal things that are hard, and you can still do these jobs. Like, I think for me, that's super important. And it's about women for sure, because
Yeah.
I really, of course, resonate with the chapters of life and the kids and the crazy and all that. But it's also just it applies for lots of things. How do we show that we want different people at upper levels of leadership? We want people from different walks of life and backgrounds, and because the diversity of opinion makes us 100% stronger.
Absolutely.
And I think we've been a lot more intentional about that in the group.
Yep.
I feel like I'm just one little piece of that, but it's super important to me to model that. I mean, we're over half women in the group. More than half the people going to med school are women. And so these are the things we are going to be women are going to be many of the leaders in the future. So how do we set that up so people can see that as a possibility?
That's one thing I've always loved about teaching at PacMag is watching. I mean, over the last probably, I don't even know, but watching the changes in the groups, watching the ratio shift has been amazing. And in fact, probably the last 5 or so years, maybe 8, it's been more women than men in the groups,
Definitely.
which is amazing.
It's amazing. It's intentional in many ways.
Fantastic.
And I mean, I also want to say I have so many amazing male leaders who have, sponsored and mentored me. And let me just say, I am here for that too. So I think we've just been intentional about really thinking more intentional, just being more intentional, like thinking about how we want to show what we do to our younger physician. We talk a lot about, we're like, think about the young, think about the young. We are leading for those people, nearing retirement, but how are we doing this for the people who are just joining? It's so important to me when I think about my journey. How will we leave the group?
Right.
How will we leave it for the people who are coming up?
That's right. Well, let me ask you this. I'm sure there's been a time in your leadership journey where, something happened that you knew that you were being treated differently because you were female, because you're a woman. How did you manage that situation? Or how would you coach somebody, a young leader who might find themselves in the same circumstance?
Yeah. I mean, I'll use the common one that happens probably weekly. I mean, and this happens all the time to women physicians, is I will be on a meeting and somebody will be doing introductions and they'll be like, the male leaders are like, oh, this is Dr. Smith and Dr. Jones and Elizabeth. And that is super, super common. And I don't actually think any women leaders who are physicians, you hear me, you see me, happens all the time, 100%. Written documents, invitations, emails, it's just everywhere. And anybody's trying to put me in a hole, or it's just unconscious.
Right.
It's like the things that, people just do. So I think with everything, it's kind of back to, where do you want to get on a hill and make a big deal about things? There's a time and a place for that. But for example, if I get, an email from someone I don't know with the system and it's looking like that, I will email them back and be like, oh, thank you so much for this. In a professional setting, I also prefer to be addressed with doctor, whatever.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be mean or get on some big soapbox, but it's a just gentle correction. It happens all the time, right? Does it matter? It matters. Does it have to matter intensely that gets my emotions all up every single time? No. So I think it's just that balance,
Right. And it's maybe just calling it out, appropriately.
Yeah.
Where need be. I've been in meetings where they automatically assume the woman's going to take the notes. It drives me crazy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah. So things like that. They call it kind of an invisible tax that women carry in leadership, because you have to think about your tone. You have to think about modulating different aspects of the way you behave, so you're not perceived a certain way. And I think it's just an extra burden that I think male leaders don't really understand or think about that often.
I think that's true. I think also the way I think about it is, I think there's like a level of professionalism and decorum.
Yes.
That if women are the ones who are expected to do that, then I think we should elevate the culture so everyone's expected to do that.
Yes.
And it doesn't really bother me that women are held to that standard, because I think it's the entry point that everybody should be held to that standard.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Let's all be a little more emotionally intelligent, shall we?
Yeah, the people you can learn it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes, absolutely. I love that actually. All right. So I want to ask just a couple more things of you because I've just been enjoying this. So it is switching gears a little bit towards structural things. If there was something structural that you could change about how healthcare organizations are developing and supporting physician leaders or clinician leaders in general, a real structural change, what do you think it would be? Top of the list.
I think for the specific topic of physicians and leadership, I would say recognition, like in a big health system, for example, not like, because I feel very fortunate to work for a medical group. This is my view of the world. And I'm sure that there's amazing opportunities for physicians who are employed by healthcare systems. It's just very different.
Yeah.
But I would say the recognition that physicians are outstanding leaders and they're coming from a particular walk of life
Yes.
and they need investment in training
Yeah.
to become your very best leaders on all kinds of topics.
Yeah.
So I would love to see more intentional leadership paths,
Right.
not just in the traditional, the CMO role, clinical roles. Yeah, those are important too, but all across. I think there's so much untapped potential in many
Yes.
ways
Yeah.
that investment in that by whether it's systems or medical groups or anybody else,
Right.
I would love to see more of that.
So it's almost like empowering and embedding leaders in the system that can actually make structural improvements and changes, see, diagnose them, acknowledge them, bring people along, and make
Totally.
systemic.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
a very physician-centric view of the world for sure.
Like that.
But I think, for me, I would like to see more of that.
Yeah. I got that. All right. So last question. Okay. So as you're looking, say you're 10 years from now and you're looking back at this season of your career, what would you like to make sure or see that you've built during this time? What's most important to you?
I think for me and many of the leaders at PathMig,
Yeah.
the strength of the group
Yeah.
is the very most important thing. Like, I think through lots of healthcare systems, people are maybe jumping from system to system sometimes or going for that next role and the next title, and that's totally good. I think in the group, we don't really, generally speaking, kind of see it like that. People never leave here. I mean, sometimes, but it's really, really rare. And
Yeah.
I think we're very invested in just making sure that this place is strong going into the future, because that's really, it should be all of our legacies, to make sure that we have strong organization leadership, sort of advocacy, all the pieces in place so that the physicians and APCs who work for this group are in the best possible place they can be to take care of patients.
Yeah.
For me, I think every day that's what we try and do. And when I look back at my career, I hope it's just like a string of days that all end up leading the group to be better than when I started, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I think you're doing it. So thanks. I've got to watch you and your progression a little bit of the last year. So I think it's fantastic.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking, sharing, and just, all this candid content and tips and ideas and thoughts. I love it. I think it's going to help people who are listening.
Happy to do it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I hope you come back, Elizabeth. I'm sure, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about.
I would love to come back.
All right. Well, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you're a new leader or stepping into a bigger role than you've ever held before, I hope this conversation gave you something real to hold on to. Navigating political landscapes, knowing when to push and when to step back, building the kind of trust that makes hard things possible. These aren't soft skills. They're really the whole job. And I'd encourage you to sit with one thing that landed for you. Not a list, just one thing. And think about where it applies in your work right now. Make it practical and take positive action. Helping you do that is the whole point of these conversations. So I want to thank Dr. Copeland, Elizabeth, for being so generous with her experience and her honesty. This is exactly the kind of conversation that I started this podcast to have. So everyone, thank you for listening, and take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Lead Well MD is produced by Ashley Wendell and Physician Leader Group. Get new episodes as soon as they're published by following Lead Well MD on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to share with your colleagues and spread the word.